Testament. Can you walk us through what that is, how that's different from the depositions we're now used to seeing at the hearings?
Sure, it's just another form. It's the provision of written questions and written answers. I believe former President Trump did that in connection with some of the Mueller proceedings. It is done less typically than a recorded and oral deposition, and it is just something to be negotiated between the parties. So we haven't seen many of them, or at least we're not aware of many of them, but it may be that for that it's more palatable to the former vice president to provide testimony in that form. And certainly that's what Mr. Representative Kinzinger has alluded to.
Matt Miller, there's also news broken by The Intercept, confirmed by several other outlets, that Secret Service messages were deleted after oversight investigators requested them. The agency says it was the result of a, quote, device replacement program, but I wonder what you make of it, how serious it is.
It's very serious. It's obviously completely indefensible by the Secret Service. I mean, remember that the Secret Service, in addition to protecting the president and other dignitaries, is also a law enforcement agency that conducts investigations and demands that subjects under investigation turn over emails and other documents. So if there's anyone you ought to expect to honor a document preservation request, it is a law enforcement agency. Now, we don't know whether it was a deliberate action or whether it was accidental, whether it was part of some plan to migrate devices, as the service appears to be saying. I will say, based on my time in government, usually when you have to choose between whether it was an act of incompetence or an act of malfeasance, you will never go broke betting on incompetence. But the bottom line is we don't know the answer, and the Inspector General needs to find out the answer. And whichever it is, as I said at the outset, it is completely indefensible. The Secret Service was put on notice that the committee was investigating and wanted access to these records, and they should have preserved them. And I think it's the latest in a series of actions from an agency that just shows that despite all the men and women there who do really brave and incredible work, it's an agency with a deeply flawed culture at this point.
Yeah, Doug, talk to me about the agency. What does this story tell you?
Well, it's not just sad. It is a gross dereliction of their responsibilities at best. They were under an obligation to maintain those records, and clearly they did not. So, yes, as Matt just said, it could be coincidence. It could also be coincidence that both Jim Comey and his top deputies' records were chosen for audit by the IRS, but there is a broader pattern here, particularly within the Secret Service, as Matt also just said, that is, as Representative Raskin said, quite chilling. Those words that Vice President Pence spoke, I will not get into that car, I'm paraphrasing a bit, because he was concerned that the Secret Service would whisk him off and not allow him to perform his duties as counting the electoral votes. It is deeply disturbing. It does point to a very troubling pattern within the agency, at a minimum.
I think the proof is in the pudding whenever it comes to how that Secret Service has been caught at various times buying prostitutes and doing other illegitimate things around the presidencies, as well as not only how that they have tried to destroy my personal life, beginning with the 9 tapes that went to the White House in 1988 in Ronald Reagan's administration, but how that they have brought forth false accusations about the founder of the Windmill Ministries, and how that they have basically destroyed thousands of people's lives here in America, of those that brushed a little bit too close to the truth, that was either running for office or those that just didn't make the grade according to them. And it's almost as if you have an agency within an agency that's basically running our government. And they know not to delete those things and make sure all that stuff was taken care of. Just like they know whenever Donald Trump took all that paper material down there to Florida, knowing good and well that he was not supposed to have taken that material off because it was considered the property of the public. They know. I'm telling you, that's where it all stems from. It comes from the top. It don't come from the bottom up. It comes from the top in this resistance movement that began 30 some odd years ago, to the degree that if we, the people, would have been aware of the things that was going on during the time that they was going on, it would have probably made everybody's hair stand up on top of their heads, regardless whether it was old man Senior Bush, that knew good and well that Saddam Hussein did not have bombs of mass destruction, all the way down to young Bush that went to war against Saddam Hussein again. How that America was paying for our military to blow up a bridge, and then we was turning around and paying Halliburton, Dick Cheney, to build it back. It was absolutely the most asinizing thing that the American people sat idly by and let happen. Just like 9/11, knowing good and well that pretense, that ideology come from the Arabic, Saudi Arabia, what do they call it, kingdom over there. And if you'll get to looking, there was an episode that happened with young Bush pertaining to one of their cousins or brothers or something that was in a helicopter accident down there in Dallas, that he died. This was before 9/11 ever happened. Who knows what the actual reason was that was plotted against us because of what the Bushes either had done or had not done in response to the oil kingdom over there. But basically it come from them. And they hushed it up real quick because they was afraid that the general public was going to find out the truth. And it begins, yes, with Homeland Security, Secret Service, that thinks that everything that they have done is in secrecy. They don't realize that people keep documents too. People keep records too. And though you may delete them, if somebody's got that either in the digital form or the paper form, it's kind of hard to deny the facts towards what actually occurred. And I can prove every one of the episodes with Homeland Security beginning in Washington, D.C., that sifted down to the innermost chambers of other field offices such as Nashville, Tennessee. I can validate it towards what they done that they shouldn't have done, that has put us where we are right now. And it's got to be the most harmonious, saddest, creepiest, scariest times of history that the American people are going through right now, and they don't even realize how close that we are to a total calamity. Most people didn't even know nothing about January the 6th in America pertaining to the swearing in, because most people don't even care about those things. And it hasn't been until here recently, whenever the newscasters has been putting it on every freaking newscasting station you can think of, that now it's been overwhelming to some people towards, my God, did this really happen? Did this really go on? Oh yeah, it really did. I promise you it did. Have they really destroyed thousands of people's lives? Oh yeah, I promise you they did. You speak up against their current president that they have, and they'll come after you and make your life miserable. And they can do it through the federal courts. They can do it through other means other than direct through Homeland Security pertaining to Secret Service. And as far as I'm concerned, some people's heads need to be on the block pertaining to their careers. And to this day, there has not been full accountability towards why and who allowed for those Saudi Arabian terrorists to train, eat, live, and then do what they done here in America that killed basically 3,000 people. I don't really have words for it because it's that horrific. I never would have thought that I would have read or understood anything like this about America. It's scary. It's creepy scary in what has occurred in the past 30 some odd years, and it's only been by the hand of God that I've been able to tell my side of the story in regards towards all the interference that I've had. How many people is raised up out in the middle of Timbuktu that basically was a dropout in school because they had to farm and they had an abusive father, and I dove off into the construction industry just to get away from the farm, and then I had an accident, and then some more occurrences happened in my life that was kind of strange or weird, and then some more occurrences happened in my life that was miraculous, pertaining to miracles. But how many people can say that they've actually been in a jet unless they've had military training or unless they have associated themselves with the airline industry? How many people do you think can say that they have been within about 30 miles of Mach 1 flying from Wheeling, West Virginia, or somewhere around West Virginia to Butner, North Carolina, to be studied by the United States government pertaining to them trying to make me out to be an assassin, like I was on my way to take out George Walter Bush's life, and the whole time I was only going to Washington, D.C. to tell people that they had made a great era in going to war with Saudi, the time that they went to war in thinking that Hussein had bombs of mass destruction, that even President Ford, prior President Ford, spoke against that in knowing what was going on, but did not want those records revealed until after he was dead because he was afraid of the very institution that he was a part of. Now that is speaking words towards proof in the pudding, towards just exactly how creepy and how darkened that the United States Homeland Security Secret Service agency has become in the past 30 plus years. And I know I'm like them. I know there has to be good men and women that are very honest and they're very upfront, and they would be willing to sacrifice their lives in a heartbeat for our president or for our Constitution. I know that everybody cannot be corrupt in that agency, but by and large, there's been certain people that has taken the bull by the horns in that agency that has dominated that agency. And once more, that agency is not supposed to be dominating the presidency. The presidency is supposed to be the ones dominating that agency. Now, granted, whenever it comes to safety issues, yeah, Secret Service needs to be right there head on, pertaining to protecting various diplomats, not only the President of the United States, but various diplomats all over the world, because we don't need diplomats to come over here to the United States and then all of a sudden something happened to them and turn into an international occurrence. Vice versa, whenever our diplomat goes to another country, their Homeland Security or Secret Service or whatever that they call themselves over there, they don't need for a disturbance to happen, so they want to be sure and protect this guy. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like the Pope. We got to protect this guy. We don't need something to happen here.
Matt Miller, I'm sorry. I don't know if you heard the audio at the top, the leaked audio from Steve Bannon sort of talking through his and the president's plans for post-2020 election. Greg Sargent over at the Washington Post argues that that audio is particularly bad for Trump because of the premeditation it shows. I wonder, sort of the fact that they were saying all of this out loud in rooms, how much further does it advance a potential prosecution of Trump himself?
I think it advances it. I think the important thing we'd want to know is what Steve Bannon said to the former president. Remember, we found at in the last committee hearing that the two of them did talk. We don't know what that conversation was about because, of course, Steve Bannon defied his subpoena to come and testify before the committee. And I will say one of the things that I think ought to happen going forward after Steve Bannon's trial ends, if he is convicted, as I suspect he will, he has his lawyer in court say he doesn't have really any defense available to him. If he is convicted, the Department of Justice can then put him in the grand jury and make him testify. Now, we've not seen that sort of aggressive investigation by the department so far, but there certainly ought to be one. And if there is one, Steve Bannon ought to be one of the first witnesses they put in the grand jury to tell exactly what he said to Donald Trump and what Donald Trump said to him.
Tanya Perry, Matt Miller, thank you both. That is all in on this Thursday night. I'm going to be back here this weekend with American Voices at...
But you know the incredible thing about all this, the irony of this, I can get my vehicle right now and drive to Kenton, Tennessee, and in less than...
They were under an obligation to maintain those records, and...
In less than 15 minutes from where I live right now, I could go in either direction and find a Donald Trump banner flying of people that is still just as deceived. And this is all stirred up by the Democrats towards them not believing the truth. I guarantee you I could drive either west or east within 15 minutes and I could find a group of people that would swear, I see them every day in this area wearing t-shirts and stuff, that would swear that Donald Trump and the Republican Party got the raw end of the deal. So how do you convince a group of people that is unconvincible? You can't. You can't. That's kind of like convincing people that God is real and that God is alive and that Jesus Christ was the Lord. You can't convince people of those things. You know, there was a certain time whenever there was people that was convinced that the world was flat and spin around. There was a certain time whenever people was convinced that the moon was made out of this versus made out of that. I mean, whenever people become brainwashed, spellbound, bewitched, kind of like the people over in the Middle East that thinks that if they pull a detonated cord in a suicide vest and kill 150, 200 people, that they're going to go live with Allah and drink all the wine and have 99 virgins to live with. Or the people over in India that believe in reincarnation. I'm just naming off a very, very few that believe in reincarnation, but yet all the people are starving to death and they refuse to eat butcher and eat a cow because they're afraid that they may be eating one of their ancestors. I mean, how do you convince people that they are deceived, or that they have been deceived, or that they have been bamboozled? Because there's certain people, especially out here in the rural areas, I don't care if they play program after program after program pertaining to the defense of how that the Democrats won the election open, fair, and that Donald Trump was the one that was steamrolling the American people's will towards going up against our very government and trying to overthrow our government pertaining to a coup. I don't care. There's a certain amount of people out there you could talk to them until you is black and blue and green in the face, and you'll never convince them of these particular issues. You know why? Because they're brainwashed. They're bewitched. They're not going to listen to nobody until it comes home, until it affects their livelihood in some sort of way. You still got people to this day that don't believe in COVID. They still think that was a hoax. Much less believing in monkeypox or believing in some of these other diseases now that are spreading over in India and other places. I've never seen a society so blinded. I've never seen a society that was so bewitched as I am today. And we have the Reagans and the Bushes to thank for that, because of what went on that shouldn't have went on in 1988. And I say that again and again and again, and I'm going to continue to say those things until I'm dead with both my feet sticking straight up into the air. I'm going to continue to say what I'm saying because I know what I know and I can prove it. Thanks again. Good luck to all of us. And once again, shalom. See ya.